In this video, I'm going to cover the part 2 of chapter 2 NCERT Polity Class 11 Rights in the Indian Constitution. The previous video up to fundamental rights have finished. In this video, I'm going to cover directive principles of state policy and the relationship between fundamental rights and directive principles. Directive principles of state policy. Directive principles of state policy. The makers of our constitution knew that independent India was going to face many challenges. Foremost among these was the challenge to bring about equality and well-being of all citizens. They also thought that certain policy directions was required for handling these problems. At the same time, the constitution did not want future governments to be bound by certain policy decisions. Therefore, some policy guidelines were incorporated in the constitution, but they were not made legally enforceable. This means that if a government did not implement a particular guideline, we cannot go to the court and asking the court to instruct the government to implement that policy. Thus, these guidelines are non-justiciable. Non-justiciable means that is parts of the constitution that cannot be enforced by the judiciary. Those who framed our constitution thought that the moral force behind these guidelines would ensure that the government would take them seriously. What do the directive principles contain? The chapter on directive principles lists mainly three things: the goals and objectives that were as a society should adopt, certain rights that individuals should enjoy apart from the fundamental rights, and certain policies that government should adopt. We may get some idea of the vision of makers of our constitution by looking at some of the directive principles shown below. The government from time to time tried to give effect to some directive principles of state policy. They passed several Zamindari abolition bills, nationalized banks, enacted numerous factory laws, fixed minimum wages, cottage and small industries were promoted, and provisions for reservation for the upliftment of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes were made. Such efforts to give effect to the directive principles include the right to education, formation of Panchayat Raj institutions all over the country, partial right to work under employment guarantee program and midday meal scheme, etc. Fundamental duties of citizen. In 1976, the 42nd Amendment to the Constitution was passed. Among other things, this amendment inserted a list of fundamental duties of citizens. In all, 10 duties were enumerated. However, the Constitution does not say anything about enforcing these duties. As citizens, we must abide by the Constitution, defend our country, promote harmony among all citizens, to protect them. As citizens, we must abide by the Constitution, defend our country, promote harmony among all citizens, protect the environment. However, It must be noted that our Constitution does not make the enjoyment of rights dependent or conditional upon fulfillment of duties. In this sense, the inclusion of fundamental duties has not changed the status of our fundamental rights. The more information about directive principles of state policy, Part B of the Indian Constitution deals with directive principles of our state policy. The provisions contained in this part cannot be enforced by any court. Previously I said about it. But these principles are fundamental in the governance of the country, and it shall be the duty of the state to apply these principles in making laws. Article 37. Application of the principles contained in this part. Article 38. State to secure a social order for the promotion of welfare of the people. And Article 39. Certain principles of policy to be followed by the state. Article 39A. Equal justice and free legal aid. Article 40. Organization of village panchayat. Article 41. Right to work, to education and to public assistance in certain cases. Article 42. Provision for just and humane conditions of work and maternity leave. Article 43. Living wage, etc. for workers. Article 43A. Participation of workers in management of industries. Article 44. Uniform Civil Code for the citizen. Article 45. Provision for free and compulsory education for children. Article 46. Promotion of education and economic interests of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and other weaker sections. Article 47. Duty of the state to raise the level of nutrition and the standard of living and to improve public health. Article 48. Organization of agriculture and animal husbandry. Article 48A. Protection and improvement of environment and safeguarding of forests and wildlife. Article 49. Protection of monuments and places and objects of national importance. Article 50. Separation of judiciary from the executive. Promotion. Article 51. Promotion of international peace and security. I think that's all about DPSP articles. I think something I have missed before starting. In Article 36, there is a definition about DPSP. That's fine. Directive principles of our state policy, that was there, Part 4, Article 36 to 51. Then we can see relationship between fundamental rights and directive principles. It is possible to see both fundamental rights and directive principles as complementary to each other. Fundamental rights restrain the government from doing certain things, while directive principles exhort the government to do certain things. Fundamental rights mainly protect the rights of individuals, while directive principles ensure the well-being of the entire society. You can understand here. Fundamental right means it's only for individual rights, but for directive principle means it's completely about the entire society. However, at times when government intends to implement directive principles of state policy, it come conflict with the fundamental rights of the citizen. This problem arose when government sought to pass laws to abolish Jamindari system. These measures were opposed on the ground that they violated right to property. Then something happened in that time. Right to property. There are some clashes with the right to property and directive principles of state policy. You can read this, and I am giving the brief one. In 1978, the 44th Amendment to the Constitution removed the right to property from the list of fundamental rights and converted it into a simple legal right under Article 300A. The more about DPSP. That's all about DPSP and relation between fundamental rights and DPSP. And here you can see the government was saying that Parliament can amend any part of the Constitution. The court was saying that Parliament cannot make an amendment that violated fundamental rights. This controversy was settled by an important decision of Supreme Court in Keshwanand Bharati case. Remember this case, Keshwanand Bharati case. It's a very important one, and the judgment was very important for UPSC. In this case, the court said there are certain basic features of the constitution and this cannot be changed by the parliament. We shall discuss this in greater detail in chapter 9 on constitution as a living document. That's all about chapter 2. You can check your progress and coming to conclusion. You can see in the writings of Jyotirao Phule, a radical social reformer from Maharashtra, we find one of the earliest expressions of the view that rights include both freedom and equality. During the national movement, this idea of rights was further sharpened and expanded to constitutional right. Our constitution reflected this long tradition and listed the fundamental rights. Since 1950, the judiciary has functioned as an important protector of rights. Judicial interpretations have expanded the scope of rights in many respects. The government and administration of our country function within this overall framework. Rights enforce limitations on the functioning of the government and ensure democratic governance of the country. It's all about chapter 2 completely. I think I have finished chapter 2. You can check your progress and you can do these exercises. Thank you.